Hello and welcome back to the Mystic in Training podcast with me, your host, Melissa Amos. I am just back from the Business Ascension Awards and Symposium up in the beautiful castle in Yorkshire. And I had an absolute incredible time. An email has just landed in my inbox asking me to come back as the keynote for next year because of the feedback and the presence and the message that I brought to the space. So to record this now, I am feeling both humbled and honored and really empowered. And I thought that today would be a great episode to help us all understand what it is that's really going on, because this event was filled with conscious business owners and the speakers who were incredible in the different fields, all there to help people who want to make a difference get out in the world. And whilst we had strategy and visibility and understanding on how we're running our business there was a message that kept on coming through time and time again. And it was this: be yourself. If you want to be the most successful person that you can be in business, be yourself. And everyone's nodding because it's true. And I think we intrinsically know that. However, when we come back to it, what does being ourselves actually mean? We're told to show up authentically, to be yourself. But if you don't know who you really are, or maybe even who you really are not, or you've spent your whole life being what somebody else needed, somebody else wanted, played the roles that you thought that you had to play in order to be accepted, or in order to be loved, or in order to be successful, then that message of just be yourself doesn't really make sense. Like, for example, if being myself means that, well, I'm terrified to be on stage, or I believe that I am not good enough. Is that being yourself? And then that gives you an excuse to say, well, I'm not going to do this. If being yourself is bringing forward everything that you've learned, because this is part of your history and what it is that you've dedicated to, but it's not the work that you're really loving or really doing, but it's the thing that you kind of fell into or find yourself, is that really being yourself? If you're tired and burnt out and inexperienced, and here's a big one: identify as a certain healer or career path, is that really yourself? And that was the question that I asked. Now, here's the interesting thing. I had a lot of people come up to me afterwards and say not just how much they enjoyed my talk, but how powerful my talk was. And that's quite an interesting turn of phrase, how powerful my talk was. Whilst this is a really incredible thing to hear, it's got me wondering, why that? Why power? Why not just inspiring? Or why not polished? Or why not impactful? Powerful was the word that kept coming back. And my definition of power is this: when our soul, our divine blueprint, is aligned with our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, our decisions, our expression. When all of those things come into alignment, we have access to this higher realm, if you like, or this greater force of energy. And when everything can then run through this like a laser beam, everything is coherent, everything is congruent. And there's a certain power that comes with that. As I said to a few people who came up to me and said that, obviously after I said thank you, is, you know what it is? It's because I really believe it. I really believe what I'm saying, and I live what I'm saying. The message that I delivered about us having a power problem, about us understanding that we need to be able to hold the capacity to hold that power. We need to begin to understand what being ourself actually means and what it actually doesn't mean. And that we need to go out there and make a difference in the world. Like, our industry, the spiritual space, really is, in my opinion, the key to changing all of the things that we don't like to see in the world. And I believe that to my core. And I live it as one of my core philosophies. So when I'm standing on stage and I'm presenting and sharing some of the hardest things that have happened to me in business, and some of the ways that I have overcome that and what those lessons have taught me, what they are feeling is less about the message and the slides and the, everything else that is presented. What they are feeling is that coherence, that authenticity that is hard to fake, because we're tapping into a frequency as well as the very human ability to express and present and get a message across. When I think back to my healing journey, I realized that I spent many years trying to become a better version of myself. I have studied a lot. I have I have qualified in so many different healing modalities. I've changed careers. I've done the things. I've done the thousands of hours of client testimonials. Okay, whilst that might have given me some form of authority, and there was a lot of people in the room who didn't know me. It was the first time we'd met. And so whilst those things may have satisfied a part of their mind, they were responding to this understanding, I think, that everything that I spoke about was lived. I wasn't trying to prove anything. And I said this to somebody who was saying that they're quite nervous about speaking on stage. And what do I do to prepare? And I do sit in, you could call it meditation, you could call it prayer before I present. And what I actually ask for is, may I be of service? Not trying to impress. I'm not trying to serve an agenda. I'm not trying to manipulate people to come into my world. I'm asking for the purest form of expression so that I may be of service. And not just any service, the highest service that I can be, that is true for me. I stood there as the woman that life helped me become. My natural language, my natural passion. And I let my power be seen and felt and heard, which in this space is often quite unusual, because at the beginning of the talk, I asked that question, what does power mean to you? And the words that were coming back were things like greed and corruption and manipulation and aggression. But I don't think anybody who came up to me and said that was the most powerful talk was saying to me that I think you're aggressive. I hope not. They were talking about something else. They were talking about this coherence. They were talking about this access to a higher power. But what's really interesting is when we're invited to step into our power, especially in the spiritual space, we are often confusing it with, well, people are going to think that I'm greedy or manipulative or aggressive or too much, that I'm putting myself in danger in some way. And so we dim it down. And I realized that power and coherence are synonymous. Power and authenticity are synonymous. And power and service are synonymous, or can be, at least if we're coming from that space, not of I'm serving you in detriment to me, but this intention of win-win. May I do my best so that I may do my best for you. And when everybody was talking about this concept of, well, just be yourself, be in business and just be yourself, I think the barrier to that is it's the most vulnerable thing that we can do. It's one thing being rejected because they don't like your healing modality. There's one thing being rejected because they don't like, some opinion that you've taken on that could collapse under pressure. There's another thing for not being liked because you're standing there and you're sharing something that you really believe in. You're standing there presenting you and your vulnerabilities and your successes, because not everybody likes that. Had somebody come up to me and she said, I really didn't want to like you. I have to admit, as you walked on stage, I was judging you. And I was like, okay, does it feel good? Not really. But I've also learned that this is part of the growth. Yes, I might trigger a certain percentage of the room, but isn't that the point? Some of the greatest lessons that I have had has been through people that have triggered me. If we can be conscious enough to go, okay, what's going on here? What is that reflecting in me? Where is there I said this to my kid the other day, when we don't like somebody, it's often because there's something in them that we admire that we don't allow in ourselves, or something that we used to do ourselves that we've moved through, or something like that we really admire and that we'd really like. And so we recognize that. And if it's coming from an unhealed place from both parts, then it's gonna be met ego to ego. But if from your part it's coming from that place of, coherence, I'm standing in my power with this. I'm not sharing this to make you believe anything. I'm sharing this because this is the true expression that wants to come through me. It lands in a very different way. And if 20% of the room were like, no, I hated that, then that was a thing that I had to allow. That could not be my influence. That couldn't be the thing that let me dim down what it was that I wanted to share. And because of that, the talk landed, the conversations happened, people came up to me, and I've been invited back in the space. This ability to be yourself is not just be yourself. It's not that easy. This ability to be yourself takes a lot of inner inquiry. I started this healing journey thinking I need to become better, but I didn't. I just needed to become more. And part of that is, am I willing to strip away all of the things that aren't me? Side note, that was the key to my weight loss journey too. Am I willing to strip away all of the things that aren't me, the things that are serving other people's agendas, the things that are stopping this power from coming through? This thing that is fractaling the alignment between what I know, what I believe, what I experience, what I'm becoming. Because as I allow myself to chip away at that, to recognize it, to start to know the feeling, the composition, the sensation of what it means when I'm acting from true self, we can call it big S self, and when I'm acting from small self. That's been my inquiry for a long time. And that's what people were picking up. Know who you are, know how you serve. This alignment between what you know, what you believe, what you've experienced, what you say, how you've lived, and how you lead. How you lead yourself in private, as well as how you lead your clients, how you lead your business, how you lead your visibility, how you lead yourself on stage. It's as much about asking yourself to, what is really important for me right now, what wants to express, how do I express my personality? There was one speaker there, Alice, who was speaking about her ADHD and how actually when she claimed that, and she does time management, and she's like, well, like, what on earth? And I'm sat there thinking, well, what better than somebody who has struggled with focus and time management to actually have created the frameworks that other people who have a similar temperament to her, to teach the framework. As we allow more of ourselves, as we stop becoming victim to these things, as we stop thinking that we're broken, and we understand what strategies we've created for a safety mechanism, and actually what the soul is wanting to express through you, we can join them together, these two things. What wants to come through me? How am I expressing my truth and removing anything, integrating anything, healing anything that is actually not yours to begin with? And there's something deeply compelling. There's something that people pick up, and I think it's trust. I think that this is how you create that sense of, like, the nervous system just goes, ah, yeah, even if you're triggered, yeah, I can feel the truth underneath that, because it's more in alignment. We resonate with truth, capital T truth, true truth, right? We resonate with soul expression more than we resonate with the what's coming from the mind or the body. And I think what people were picking up in my talk, and how I was, it was a 2-day event, how I showed up after the event and in between the event and in the stands and supporting the other speakers, is there wasn't a gap between what I believe and what I was saying. And people noticed that. And so maybe you're thinking that you would like to speak on stage or present something like this, or start your own podcast, or even just become more visible in your business. And rather than looking for more confidence or more clarity or more strategies or more success or more clever opinions, maybe what it is that we're searching for is coherence, congruence, which is why some people can literally walk into a room, say 1 or 2 sentences, and you feel it. It happens. So it's day 2 that we had a VIP day, and I had my cards there, and I was inviting in some conversation, sometimes just in the tea break. And there was a number of occasions where I just said one thing, and they were like, oh, wow, yeah, that changes it, because they feel the congruence. And I think that's the missing piece. I think that's what most of us are looking for. That if you've got something that you want to say, it's coming to you for a reason, and the path becomes, how am I most in congruence with this? Because we've also seen the other side of it, where people have said all the right words, and you're looking at them and you're like, nothing moves. In my 45-minute talk, I had people who put out their offer that they wouldn't dare to do beforehand. They moved and they trusted, and they were like, well, you told me to do it, so I did it. That doesn't come because of alliteration and because of presenter style. And it doesn't come from performance. It comes from coherence. And coherence isn't performative. Coherence is something you become through your life, through your journey. Maybe coherence is what it actually means to be yourself. I'll leave you with that. How do you become more coherent? And how does that make you more yourself? I'll see you next time.